No, sir.
Okay. If that's the case, I'd like to kind of take this out of turn so that Eric can be here when we talk about workers' comp. So we'll start with early return to work program. I'm sorry, I want to start with you. I guess.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. I'm Mona Bernard, Director of Risk Management, for those of you who may not have met me before. We were asked by some board members to bring back an updated chart, which you see before you, showing the monthly cost of workers' comp claims for an updated period. I think the last one, and I have with me Andre Como of Regions Insurance, and Andre is our broker who helps us place our insurance coverages for property and casualty, and also helps us manage our safety program. So we had given you an old one, and I forgot the years. It was some years ago, like 2003 through 2005 or something. And so we were asked, can't we see an updated chart for the last couple of years of what our monthly claims costs are? And so that's what this is. And of course, you would be called to your attention that big spike in December of 2015. So I want to provide you some explanation about that. That month we did settle a couple of very large claims. One for $151,495. Since then, we have recovered $110,195 from the reinsurer for that claim, but that was paid in the month of December. There was a $32,438 settlement as well. There was a $30,000 surgery for one claim, and I'm just going over the things that we paid that were over $20,000, which I call big ticket items, and a big, very large claim of $404,064 that month. Since then, we've recovered $377,201 of that from the reinsurer. But that is a map of what our claims experience has been, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and if you have any of Andre.
So, Ms. Bernard, looking at the very last dot, just as a point of reference, after the big spike, so is that indicating that for that particular moment in time, the school system is paying $400,000 plus in workers' comp benefits, like each month? That's the regular payments that are being made?
That would be about right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that's just ongoing pending comp claims, including indemnity and their medical?
That's correct, for all years of injury. All, yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments?
You're welcome. Early return to work, again, this is a program we've considered, and we now feel like perhaps we may have some board support for. It is a program to return the injured worker to work when there's an on-the-job injury, and it can take the form of modifying a person's regular duty so that we can accommodate them for a period while they continue to recuperate, or we could create some transitional jobs. They would not be permanent, but they would bring the person back and get them productive and feeling better, and gradually return them to their original position. The benefits are both to the employer and the employee. Obviously, we want to reduce the cost of workers' comp claims, and when you return a person to work earlier, you actually reduce not only the indemnity, which is the replacement of their lost wages, but medical as well. And you reduce the opportunity for them to get an attorney, or the tendency to get an attorney, which always escalates the cost of a claim. And also, you reduce litigation. You reduce the cost of substitute employees. You maintain an experienced workforce. And you can read for yourself the benefits that I've outlined on the program, on the Early Return to Work program handout. The benefits are also for the employee as well, because they have a sense, when you have this kind of program, you're in constant touch with them, and you're reaching out to them and encouraging them to come back, and it gives them a sense of security and stability. And also financially, it's to their benefit, because The statistics indicate that 60% of workers who are away from their jobs beyond 14 days get into financial trouble because they're not prepared for that loss of income, because indemnity doesn't pay you as much as your regular wages. Extended absence causes loss of job skills, and we know that in the teaching profession in particular, things are always changing. There's always in service, and so if you get a teacher who's out for a year, she or he has lost quite a bit of opportunity for professional development. You can read some of the other benefits, including that they physically improve if they come back to work faster than if just hang around at home and watch TV. The implementation, the next handout, indicates that before the injury, and actually before the program is implemented, the first thing that we would do in partnership with Employers Risk Management, which handles our claims and also has some safety and experience developing these programs, the first thing we would do is reach out to what we call our preferred doctors and build ourselves a little network of doctors to whom we sell this program, or at least we explain what it is, and they're on board and they understand that from the beginning we want a lot of communication with the doctor. We want to do everything we can to get the party back to work, and also let the doctor know that we have transitional duty and what that is, so that he or she can say, yes, I think Mona can go and do this job for 90 days, and by then she should be back at her regular duties. We would also want to identify some transitional job duties. These could be some that are done on a routine basis, but maybe it's a short-term project that we have to do every year, and we could put that person doing that. It might be sorting data or any number of things like that, or inventory perhaps in the warehouse. They might not have to move anything, but they might have to count stuff and help with that process. So there are lots of ideas that we would want to come up with for that. And then immediately following an injury, the way the program generally works is you direct the employee to one of the doctors who understands your program and is on board with it. We would stay in communication with the physician's office, whichever physicians he or she visits, and we again remind them of the transitional duty. And if they go to a specialist, again, we would contact that. Now, it wouldn't be me. It would probably be an adjuster from ERMS who would do these things, because they got their hands in the file. However, we would want to have the supervisor reach out to that employee during all this time, because a lot of times they feel isolated, they feel forgotten when they get on workers' comp, they don't feel appreciated. And if we maintain contact, we let them know we do care and we do want them back. And that's an important piece in that program. When they are ready to come back to modified duty or transitional duty, we would certainly meet with the employee, explain what we're going to have him or her doing, make sure they understand their limitations and that they respect those physical limitations, and meet with the person regularly until we get past the point where they have to be on transitional duty and can come back. I've also included a timeline of how we would implement this. There are some decisions we would have to make, and we would have to bring to the board and ask you to make, such as what employees do you want included in the program, if it's all of them or a particular group. Personally, I think all of them, because all the different departments have accidents from time to time. We will want to decide what's the effective date of the program. When we start it, do we want to bring in people who are possible candidates that are currently out, or do we want to start it with claims that begin as of a certain date? We also need to decide where we're going to fund the employees from. Eventually, our hope is we would save enough on workers' comp claim costs to shift that to fund paying these people for doing transitional duty. But initially that won't happen. We're going to have to take some time before we build up those savings. So we will have to decide that. Now, if a person is able to go back to his original job in modified duty, that's not an issue because we've got a budgeted item to pay that person from. But if it's a teacher and she's going to do some clerical duties for a time, we're going to have to budget to pay her whatever those clerical wages are. So we have to keep that in mind. And then I do have the timeline. I have as today being our first pitch, if you will, to develop support from our senior management. And I believe that by the second meeting, I'm sure that by the second meeting in April for introduction, we could have a plan designed for your consideration for the board's approval. So we would be developing that over the month of March.
Okay. Of course, you know, Ms. Bernard, I have lots of thoughts about the return to work. It's something I've been talking about since I started working with the school board back in 2000. So I'm definitely on board with getting this going. I know you and I have talked in the past about exploring the return to work program that Stellar has in place. They have about the same number of employees. And they have, I understand, a very strong return to work program. So that may be a great resource for you and ERMS to explore as far as maybe a draft of a policy or a procedure or something of that nature. I'm not sure if it should be a policy, except to say we have a return to work, but probably the details of it should be outside the policy, I would think. I'm familiar with ERMS, so I would assume that when looking at all of this, they're going to also look at the return to work language in the medical treatment guidelines to make sure we're taking full advantage of those and the strong position of the Workers' Comp Commission to get injured employees back to work and in line with the medical treatment guidelines. It seems to me that the budget for it, at least initially, would probably still be within the budget that you use to pay workers' comp benefits, because I guess initially it would be a benefit in lieu of indemnity or something to that effect until they got to a point where they were past a certain point. And I think my last thought would be that we'd certainly want to start, I think that it might be important to identify the 2 or 3 classes of employees that you have the most workers' comp claims from, and maybe start the program, start the education with those particular job classifications first. And to set a deadline, it's going to need some approval from the board up here first, but to get all those things lined up. And then identifying with HR, I guess, the types of positions. It's going to differ for each employee based on their injuries and their restrictions. But I'm confident that it's going to result in significant cost savings in the long run. I don't know if there can be any kind of cost-benefit analysis. There's probably something that's been done out there for other organizations to kind of show what the long-term cost savings would be, and not just cost savings to the board, but just the psychosocial savings for the injured employees as well.
Do we have any idea how much money we would start off with by budgeting, or if we were to go with this plan? I mean,
I'm not sure that I can answer that, but I can explain. Let me explain maybe a little bit how it works. So let's say that you have a teacher who's injured and they can't return to their regular job, because I think teaching is considered a medium duty job. So we pay them, they get significantly less, but they get their comp benefit, their wage benefit at home. But let's say their restriction is that they can only do sedentary work, so they can't go back into the classroom because that's medium duty. So maybe the school that they are assigned to can, as a part of the return to work, will create a position that meets that person's restriction. So it may be answering the phone, making copies, anything that's going to fit within the restrictions. And they're building up their strength and everything, and then we can get them off a comp and back into the classroom as they build up that strength. So they would not be getting comp and wages. It's one or the other. So at some point it's going to be kind of equal. But then eventually start reducing the amount of medical expenses and then getting them back to work and off a comp altogether. So I think in the long run, instead of paying somebody workers' compensation for 10 years and then also paying somebody to take their place in that position, it's going to significantly reduce that $400,000 that we're paying monthly in workers' comp. So,
So they wouldn't get comp pay and the other pay, would be one or the other. Okay, I understand.
We could probably take a line item in that cost center for workers' comp and move some money over and pay it out of there. That we could do, yeah.
Eric, we kind of went out of order. We looked at the workers' comp chart, and then we're also talking about the return to work, just the program, which you may be familiar with.
Any other questions on workers' comp and the program, the early return to work? Then we'll go to the original one now.
Just one quick question, Mona, before you leave. I know that there have been a lot of other safety initiatives started with the buses and the bus accidents. Just anecdotally, from reading the newspaper and everything, it seems that we've had a pretty significant decrease in bus accidents that are caused by our employees. Is that your appreciation? Are our safety initiatives working?
Yes, ma'am, definitely, definitely working.
Do we have a way to quantify that yet?
I can. I sure can bring something back to you. Yes,
Great.
sir.
I did have one question. I pulled up that chart and there was a spike in the, you might have already addressed this. Looks like January of 16, there was a spike in the work comp total by month.
Yeah, she had explained that they settled a couple of very large workers' comp claims, which was a result, but there's been some reimbursement from reinsurance from that total amount.
Thank you.
And Ms. D'Angel,
Yes, sir.
is it the wish of the committee that we work toward development of a policy to bring to the board perhaps in April for a return to work?
I think so, yes. I mean, that's going to be our,
Yeah, I would maybe say even before a policy, perhaps getting some exemplar policies from other organizations such as Stellar and other comparable, maybe some school systems who may have some.
So I think we could maybe bring something back to the executive committee and then
Okay.
see where that takes us.
And then also some data, some cost-benefit analysis of continuing to pay comp as opposed to having a return to work on cost savings.
Okay, we can do that.
you want to take formal action, or that's sufficient, Doc? You okay with that? You want to go with the Moss Prep, or you want to move to the Mary Baker Smith Center and W.D. Smith Center? We'll go to number one then, the W.D. and Mary Baker Smith Career Center.
Good afternoon. Robin Olivier, Director of Career and Tech Ed. President Angel, Dr. Aguilar, present board members. I'm going to actually ask the principal of the Career Center to come up and give you some information about the W.D. Smith, Mary Baker Smith Career Center. Ms. Caesar?
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I have some guiding questions regarding the information you may want, starting with our enrollment. Our total enrollment is 468 students. Of those 468, 115 are high school students. We have 353 exiting pathway students, which are students who are working toward their high school equivalency exam or credential, or students who are earning a state-approved skills certificate. We have welding, auto tech, cosmetology, health, ProStart, family consumer science, carpentry, oil and gas and T2 safety, photography programs. If you want specific numbers, I can give you specific numbers for those programs. I can give those to you.
What is the total capacity of W.D. Smith Like if you had all of the classrooms being utilized, how many students could be there?
I think we calculated, Robin left, I think we calculate close to 600. We have, and I also have a map of our facility that shows you the open spaces that are available that are not being utilized at that time, if you want to see that.
Okay. I would like to when you get to that point.
Okay.
Thanks.
I have a question. These programs that you just mentioned,
Yes, sir.
they, all of them are going on all of the time?
Yes, sir. They are. The only difference would be oil and gas and T2 safety. It's not a semester or a year-long course, so we usually do 2 rounds of that. So you'll do oil and gas and T2 safety first semester for 1 round of students, and we'll do it again in the second semester for the second round. The other programs are year-long programs.
They're year-long but half-day.
Year-long but half-day, yes, ma'am.
And where
Students
does-
earn 3 credits. If they're in a 3-hour block, if they're in a 2-hour block and take a virtual class, they'll earn 2 credits for the CTE class and 1 for the virtual learning class that they're taking.
And where do they go the other half of the day?
They're at their base high schools.
Ma'am?
At their base high schools, if they're high school students. And if they're exiting pathway students, they're in academic courses working toward their high set.
All right. So about 25% of your students go to their base high school in the morning. Then they get on a bus and come to W.D. Smith for whichever part of the day for the program they're interested in. They get back on a bus, go back to their base high school, and then get on a bus and go home.
Yes, some come in the morning, some come in the afternoon.
So we're paying transportation multiple times a day.
Yes, ma'am.
So they-
Students come, report to their base schools in the morning. From their base schools, they get on the bus, come to the Career Center. For lunch at 10:30, which is midday, the half students, the buses come and pick them up, bring them back to their base schools, bring our afternoon students from the base schools to the Career Center, and then again in the afternoon, they bring the students from the Career Center to their base high schools.
Now, the 353 exiting pathway kids, are those kids that some call the overage kids?
Yes, ma'am.
And they stay at your school all day long?
If they're level 2 and level 3. We have level 1 students, which if they're first year, they're based at the high schools. If they're second year level 1 students, they're with us half a day.
All right, so how many level 1 do you have that are based at the high schools? And are those included in that 115?
No, ma'am, they're not. Well, 115, that would be the 353. Those are the exiting pathway students.
Right, so the level 1 that are based at the high school are included in that 353 number?
Only if they're at the Career Center for part of the day.
Okay.
What is, Diane, do you have the number for level 1? 50.
About 50 of the 353 are level 1?
50 at the regular base high schools. How many? Yeah. 15 to 20
All right.
level, second year level 1 students.
Okay, I'm confused now. So what's the 50 that are based at the high
That's
school?
the level 1 students in the Exiting Pathways program that are based at their high school.
So
for the
those
full day.
50 report to their base high school and do the same thing? They get on the bus, come?
Oh, ma'am. They stay at their high school the entire
All
day.
day.
First year. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but you count them in your,
No, ma'am.
okay. So the 353 are kids that are physically at your school?
Yes, ma'am.
So they're not the level 1? Okay.
Unless they're second year level 1 students.
Okay. Okay.
So if some of the students that go there spend part of the time at the high school, at their base high school or whatever the term,
Yes, sir.
but you don't have 468 kids there all day long?
No, sir. It's a total number of students that come to the Career Center throughout the day.
What would you say is an average number of kids that are there at any one given time?
I would say a little over 400 because the 353, the Exiting Pathways, are with us all day. And then you could say half of the high school students at a time, some AM, some PM. So it's a little over 400.
So, as I'm sitting here listening to you speak,
ma'am.
I'm thinking you may feel like we're putting you on the spot.
No, ma'am.
So let me tell you what drove my interest in having W.D. Smith come and give us a presentation. One, I mean, I represented the school board for many years before I was elected as a member, and I've asked many times what happens at W.D. Smith, and I would hear it's the career pathway, and I never really could get an explanation about what happens. At our last meeting, or last month, we voted to take our tax proposition off of the ballot, so that's not there any longer. But we're still looking at more capacity, more schools, because we need them for our district. So it seems to me that we have at least one facility that may be underutilized at this time. I took a tour of it a couple of weeks ago. It's a fantastic school. Looks to me like it's in pretty good physical shape. And so I wanted to explore, one, what's happening over there, what programs are there, whether we're duplicating services. For instance, I know we've got the CNA program at W.D. Smith. We've got the Health Academy at Lafayette High School, and we've also got a health component at STEM.
Yes, ma'am.
And when I pulled all those programs, there's a lot of duplication. I know a CNA certificate is different than EMT, but a lot of the coursework, CPR, basic anatomy, those types of things are duplicative. And it seems perhaps it would make more sense to consolidate those types of programs. So that's kind of where my brain is going.
Okay.
But I'm not an educator, so we wanted to open the conversation in this forum so we can have some give and take and maybe come up with some ideas, because I think if we can come up with some valid ideas about perhaps a different type of school, that maybe the facility at W.D. Smith might be one option, since we no longer have a tax proposition to get increased funds for building new facilities. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, and it's just the very first step, I think, in exploring
Yes, ma'am.
what all of our options are. So don't feel on the spot. We really are just curious about what programs we're offering there, whether we would be better served as a district or for the student population that goes there to consolidate certain programs and to create something brand new at W.D. Smith. But this is all very much just at an idea, and it may just be my idea, no one else's. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Okay. So that's what a lot of my questions are kind of targeted to. So if you don't know today, that's okay, because I'm sure we'll have you come back.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And Dr. Aguilar, I'll echo Ms. Morris's comments. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have revenue to look forward to, increased revenue from a tax proposition to look forward to. Also, unfortunately, we're facing a huge sales tax dip, potential MFP hit, 20-ish millions, plus or minus, say, 5 million, right? I mean, who's counting when we're talking about millions and millions of dollars of cuts that we have to make between now and the summer? And we know 1 in 5 classrooms are temporary in the district, and we know, but we also know that we may have some hidden capacity throughout the district. We're addressing rezoning on a macro scale, and that should happen soon and help us soon. But soon may not be soon enough. I don't believe that we're going to be in a position to rezone next year, right? I mean,
You're thinking correctly.
highly unlikely that we're going to rezone. We may do some spot rezoning. For those listening in the press, there may be some spot rezoning, so please be prepared. I'm not saying we're not going to do any rezoning, but it's unlikely that we're going to do major rezoning in the next year. So when we look at opportunities to save 20-something million dollars, we really need to start getting creative. And maybe this is totally off base, but maybe it's not off base that we consider consolidating, whether it's these health-related fields, EMT, CNA, Health Academy at one campus, that may have more capacity. Maybe we need to start thinking about some of those things. And maybe we need to think about some of our schools that might be under capacity, spot rezoning, just anything we can to save money and better utilize our facilities.
Okay, so now back to my questions
Yes,
to
ma'am.
you. All right, so the kids that are there in the exiting pathway, the overage kids, so what is a typical day for them?
Half of their day, they take a career and tech class, be it welding, auto tech, drafting and design, any of the areas that we have. The other half of the day, they're in academic classes. ELA and social studies are together. Math and science are together with writing throughout, reading and writing throughout. So half of the day is CTE, half of the day academic.
And their ultimate goal is to take the GED?
High set, yes, ma'am.
High set.
If a student have exit points, they can exit with a state approved skill certificate. They can exit with a high set, or they can exit with both.
Okay.
And we have some students who earn industry-based certifications.
Right.
We have some of the exiting pathway students who earn ServSafe this year.
Okay. Now, I understand that you have several programs there, so do you have the numbers for those 115 kids that are coming from the high schools for half a day?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Which particular programs are they, or which programs are they signing up more versus less? The ones that are coming from outside of the exiting pathway?
More in the health, the nursing program. We have 35 high school students in that program. Next would be auto tech, 27 from the high schools, cosmetology, 24, then welding, 14, and then smaller numbers, pro stored 8, photography, 3, carpentry, oil and gas, 2 each.
What did you say before oil and gas?
Carpentry,
Carpentry. Okay. All right. These questions may be more for Robin. Is she still? Yeah.
So as she's coming up, members of the board, a couple comments. We did meet with with Mr. Hefner today and discussed some ideas about moving some programs that Mike thinks would be the first step prior to rezoning, moving some programs to better accommodate services for those specialty courses and align those programs where they appear to be most needed. So we have that going on. We also have plans to bring to the board a request to move the exiting pathways from the Career Center to the La Rosen campus for 16-17. We think it's a mismatch to have those 353 exiting pathways students mingled with our Career Center students. To be brutally frank, I think 115 high school students utilizing our Career Center is underutilizing those services. We have to find a way to improve the number of students who are choosing those pathways and attending the Career Center. We did just remodel, the board did, budgeted, upgraded the culinary areas at the Career Center. There's another $600,000 to $700,000 of capital monies available to upgrade the CNA program there. I think we really need to look carefully about what we want to do with that facility, because if we move the exiting pathways kids off of that campus, you're left with 115 students using that entire campus. So we have to find something else for that program. I just have a couple of ideas. We've got people here from Moss Annex. We have elementary students, middle school students, and high school students on the Moss Annex campus. They do an outstanding job making sure those kids are separated during the day. But just as something to discuss, it might well be that the Career Center could maybe be an appropriate place for the elementary students, get them completely away from the middle and high school students on Moss Prep. So I think we need to have these discussions about how do we build the career pathways for our students. We're going to have to do that, whether we have a tax proposition or not. To get high school accountability scores up, we are going to have more high school students who matriculate through those Jumpstart pathways. So we've got to spend a little bit of money, perhaps at the Career Center, upgrade the programs, move the exiting pathways, change the climate on that campus, and then better utilize the rest of the buildings and classrooms that are there.
Is there any requirement that each of the Jumpstart programs be located in a central location?
No, there isn't. But on the practical side of things, we can't afford to have these robust pathways at 5 or 6 different high schools. We need to consolidate just for the economy of scale.
Right. And
And I'm sorry, and one more thing. They take many of these courses in the freshman and sophomore year. They take those courses and those Jumpstart pathways at the high schools. So we're really thinking about the terminal courses in these pathways would be at a central site. It just makes financial sense to do it that way.
Yes, Dr. Aguilar, our state credentials are our top career in tech ed. So we would like to see the Career Center continue to grow to be the technical center that it's meant to be, that will have the terminal credentials for the students to earn. We do expect growth over the next 2 years as Jumpstart continues to roll out. Remember, our 9th and 10th graders are our Jumpstart students, so next year would be the first year as juniors. They would be eligible, and I know Ms. Caesar has the numbers. They've done some preliminary recruiting, and students have signed up, and we do have some significant growth that we expect next year in the career and tech areas due to Jumpstart.
Okay, and what is that growth, that expectation? And those are kids outside of exiting pathways. And Ms. Caesar, when you were given the list of the high school students, how many are in the culinary program? Or the ones that are in it currently? Okay. Okay, so I'm glad to hear that at least some people have signed up for it. I do have some concerns about the amount of transportation going back and forth because, one, that's increased cost in transportation, and two, that's time the kids are out of class while they're being transported across the parish. So I'm not sure what the easy solution is for that. Fortunately, that's not up to me to decide or to come up with. It's staff and people who know more than I do. So I guess part of my question is, for instance, the automotive. I mean, I toured W.D. Smith. There's a fairly large garage automotive section, but isn't there also an automotive section at one of the high schools?
No, ma'am.
Not
There
at
is no
Como?
automotive. We do have a level 1 welding, but again, we'd like to have level 2 and level 3 be the upper echelon courses that the students would go to the Career Center for. So there are some basics that are in existence at the high school, such as carpentry at Lafayette High and at Carencro High. Welding is at all, the level 1 is at all of the high schools right now. But the students need the basics and the foundation that they earn in the level 1 to be able to move up to a possible level 2 and a level 3 at the Career Center.
Okay. Is it a possibility then, if W.D. Smith continues in the way that it's currently set up as the career school for Jumpstart, to have maybe half of the programs, the morning programs, and then the other half, because it doesn't make sense to me to have a kid in welding going in the morning and then another kid maybe from Como going in the afternoon. That just seems like a lot of extra transportation that's not necessary. So, for instance, maybe you take half of the programs and say these are our afternoon programs. So you know that those are the kids you're transporting in the afternoon versus in the morning. So I don't know if that is something that can be worked out.
We can definitely look at the option of doing something.
I'm sorry. Can you go? I'm sorry. They may be airing this on AOC or recording it, so they can't pick up what you're saying.
I wanted to address the time that the students are transported. We offer virtual learning classes at the Career Center, so students aren't missing out on any credits by coming to the Career Center. As I mentioned before, a student can take a 3-hour block, earn 3 credits, or two credits, career and tech classes, and the other one would be a virtual learning class. So if a student needs U.S. History or English 3, we offer speech, health, just about anything that's on virtual learning we offer at the Career Center, so they can take those courses and not lose a credit by coming to the Career Center.
Okay, and I guess I don't understand how that works. So let's say you have Jane Doe who goes to Como High School and she wants to do cosmetology.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
take me through her day.
Her day, if she starts at Como High School, she would do a 3-hour block at Como High School. She would come to our campus for 11 o'clock. She may be in cosmetology for 2 hours, 11 until 1. At 1, she would go to the eCampus course and take the other class online.
Okay. And then we transport her back to Como,
At the end of the day, yes, ma'am.
and then she gets home however she gets home.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Wait, don't go yet. All right, so Mr. Konezik brought up earlier that 1 in 5 of our classrooms are temporary buildings. When I toured W.D. Smith, it looked to me like in the physical part of the building, there were a lot of empty classrooms, but the cosmetology program is actually in a temporary building.
Yes, ma'am.
Why is that?
They've had that program, I think the first year in the program, which was 13 years ago, they were inside the building, and then they purchased the temporary class, the portable building. So for the last 12 years, they've been in that building, but it was purchased, if I'm correct.
It was purchased through some funding or grant funding, or does it have, for instance, stations, hair washing stations
Yes,
and
ma'am.
things like that?
Everything
Okay.
just like a salon with classrooms inside. What we've done, we've taken our campus and the buildings, they're lettered, and we have the first level of each building and the second level of each building. The pink represents available space that's not being used at this time.
All right.
The pink represents available space?
Yes, sir. And the other two on the end, I think is it yellow?
Yes,
That
yellow.
represents the academic exiting pathways classes. So if those classes are moved to La Rosen, that would be available space also.
All right. It seems when I toured, and I don't know, I was on the second floor, for instance.
Building E,
I'm not sure which building, but it was on the second floor, and it seemed that a lot of those classrooms were unused or were only partially used.
that's Building E at the top
Okay.
on the left side.
All right.
3/4 of it.
Yeah.
Unused.
Also, with Building E, that's where we're going to be placing our new, when they renovate nursing, it's going to be Building E, first level.
And when you say nursing, it's a certified nurse assistant program.
Certified nurse assistant, we also have students earn first responder and CPR certification. So they take first responder course as well as the medical terminology. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
So if we move nursing to Building E, then the upstairs of Building A will become available.
Okay. So, from a maintenance standpoint, I mean, I'm not an expert. It looked like it was in pretty good shape from a maintenance standpoint. Maybe some issues outside with rain.
Rain, lighting is an issue, a little bit with the floors in some of the areas. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It has the culinary kitchen, but it does not have a kitchen for a cafeteria.
That's correct.
Okay. And then there's no athletic facilities.
No, ma'am.
All right. But Paul Bro is right there, and Paul Bro has both.
Actually, the food is brought in to us from Moss Prep. So the students receive breakfast and lunch at our facility.
Okay. So depending on what creative ideas anybody comes up with as far as other programs, there is an option perhaps of W.D. Smith sharing the athletic facilities with Paul Bro. It's close enough right there to have students walk to the track, for instance.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So I have some ideas, and that's all they are. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people who will come up with a lot of better ideas. So, for instance, one of my ideas, in addition to what W.D. Smith does, especially with hopefully 600 and something students coming next year, is to maybe look at the language immersion programs. I know Paul Bro has the middle school immersion. I understand we don't have a high school immersion program in our parish. The kids go to their own high schools. I guess they take some foreign language. It's been explained to me that maybe at that level they don't need more because they already know their language. I'm not sure I agree with that because I think that there could be a lot of stuff done. So I'm not sure. Is Miss Boudreaux still with us or she's retired?
And Lafayette High does have a very small high school level immersion program,
Okay.
but as you say, very few kids go to Lafayette High's immersion program.
Right. So it seems to me that an option we could explore is maybe where Exiting Pathways is now, for instance, that entire wing might be an appropriate size for a high school level immersion program because the kids are already there at Paul Bro, and it may not be just French, but maybe the Spanish and Chinese, the other languages. So I pulled today off the internet, and this is probably more for Robin than for you, Ms. Caesar. Baton Rouge has a international school. It's a private school, but its website is very informative, describing what kind of services they use. And it's, I think it's I think it's K through 12. And so it has 5 or 6 languages that it does through the entire curriculum, K through 12, Portuguese, Chinese, Spanish, several languages. It's a private school, so that does put it in a different realm, but it is there. So just as an idea, something to explore. Maybe we don't have the desire, but I do know that the board has recently made Myrtle our elementary immersion school. We have Paul Bro, the middle school, I think Plantation, we have some immersion programs at other. So it seems to me we're going to have a lot more children coming up through the grades that are going to be in those immersion programs. So it'd be nice, perhaps, to have them, to give them the ability to continue that immersion education all the way through high school. So I think it may be something worth exploring. It may not be.
We'll definitely follow up with that. 3 years ago, when the Immersion Task Force was meeting regularly, they did put together some preliminary numbers at looking at the possibility of creating such a school.
Right.
So we can have to pull those files and take a look at them and look at the possibility if that would be something at the board's wishes to continue to possibly look at putting at a center.
Yeah, like again, it's just ideas. Maybe another idea. I'm not sure how many immersion kids we have at Paul Bro or what the space situation is at Paul Bro, but maybe putting the immersion program, just moving it across the street a little bit, but still being part of Paul Bro with access to the athletic facilities and everything. So that's another idea. A third idea perhaps is to create a healthcare academy where we pull all of our healthcare programs into one place, make it a high school, and then you have your programs in dental hygiene, certified nurse assistant, maybe non-patient care areas like medical, coding, healthcare, the IT, informatics, which is a very big area that's growing. We know that no matter what changes are going on in the economy, the healthcare fields are always there, especially with our aging population. So I think that's another potential area to create a 7th high school with very detailed or very targeted areas that is also career ready and can meet different areas as far as certificates and up to college level courses that they're getting through dual enrollment. And I think that there could be something like that could even include first responders, law enforcement, firefighters, and similar programs, because those again are all careers that are available in Lafayette that are outside of the energy sector, not reliant on the price of oil, which is something that we're dealing with.
As I've shared with you before, Jumpstart truly should be driven by workforce. And to that end, One Acadiana, LEDA, the Workforce Development Board, they participated in an occupational forecasting meeting. I was invited to attend last Friday, and we did look at the 2014 to 2014 projections as they look at a 10-year period, 2 years behind and 8 years forward. And we're using those data points to help us drive Jumpstart, and definitely healthcare was one of the top. To that end, those 3 entities, their representatives, Anna Oslin, Ryan Lagrange, and Courtney Leday, did ask to see our Career Center and also to look at our Jumpstart programming at the high schools. They also are planning to visit the region to make sure that the whole region is, of course, driving their Jumpstart by the needs. So actually, they visited this morning at the Career Center. They were impressed with our shops, and they also were commenting about, Ms. Caesar had told them about our plans to revitalize the nursing building and moving it to Building E, which has the space there, and they were excited to hear that we were going to do that. At the academic department, we've looked at making sure that we don't duplicate those services, so we're starting to have those conversations. I know you mentioned the program at David Thibodeau and at Lafayette High and our program at the Career Center. So yes, we're starting to look at those endpoints, if they are providing students an opportunity to have credentials, or they're providing students to move into the academic arena, going on to a 4-year institution. The students at the Allied Health program are earning some CNAs, some first responders, some EMTs, some CPR, some basic life support, and some of them, most of them actually earn those credentials but do continue on to a 4-year institution. Our Career Center students, again, as Ms. Caesar said, they will earn the CNAs, the EMRs, the BLS, and they tend to go straight into the workforce, possibly continuing on down the road. At David Thibodeau, currently, because the program still is growing, they aren't earning credentials, but the hope is that with their program, they would be able to obtain the first responder. So we do realize they're similar yet different, so we are looking at what is the best move forward to make sure that we're properly utilizing funds to consolidate if need be.
I have a question. I have a question for the from a teaching standpoint. Some of those programs you mentioned, some have 8, some have 3, some have 5. I think you mentioned carpentry. It has 2.
2 high school students. When you look at our high school students' numbers compared to our exiting pathways numbers, if exiting pathways moves to La Rosen, those students would still come to the Career Center to take those courses. Also, we have to think about, with the change in diplomas and the Jumpstart diploma, the students that will be on that track and what's available for Jumpstart for those students. All of our teachers are in a position to offer dual enrollment credit as well as credentials. But when we look at welding, for instance, for exiting pathways, we have 41 exiting pathway students who take welding, 28 auto tech, health 31, ProStart 35. So I'm thinking from an educator standpoint, with the change in diploma and the points that are assigned to the Jumpstart diploma, we will see an increase in enrollment from the high school students because the points are the same, and that way they'll be geared toward that Jumpstart diploma if their interest is there.
That's kind of what I was alluding to. Like if I'm the carpenter teacher, how many students do I have all day long?
26.
Do I have all 26 at one time, all the
Sir.
time, or
No, sir.
sometime I have 5, sometime I have 10?
We have 2 sessions, an AM session and PM session. So you may have 13 and 13. You may have, right.
About 13.
Right. And you think about shop and welding and auto tech and carpentry. Our max number of students would be close to 20. I wouldn't put more than 20 students in a welding class with one teacher. Carpentry, close to the same.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. So all of our high schools have, probably with the exception of the STEM Academy, but they have basic welding, you said, like welding 1 or whatever it's called.
NCCR Welding 1, yes, sir.
And then if they want to continue welding, they go to your
Yes,
go
sir.
to the Career Center.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have 2 different sets of questions. So, if the board approves moving the exiting pathway kids to La Rosen, then that leaves you with 115, but with 600 plus who've shown an interest. So what are the plans at this point to recruit those individuals, those 600 students, to take that next step to actually go to W.D. Smith?
Okay, part of our recruiting plan, our counselor sets up appointments at the base high schools. They go in and do presentations to all the 10th graders. So that's the first step. That's how we got the number of 697 students that signed up, said they're interested. So the next step, we'll have our orientation in the spring. We'll invite those students to us. The teachers will call them. We'll send letters. We'll notify the high schools that we want them in to come and see the facilities. And then it's just a matter of talking to the counselors and working with the counselors to make sure the students fill out applications and are ready to start in August.
All right. And you may not know this, but for the current school year that we have 115, how many high schoolers had indicated they were interested in the programs?
553,
Okay. So out of the 553, you got
115.
115.
But also, and I keep saying this, keep in mind that the sophomores of this year are the first Jumpstart
Right.
class.
Right. So we've got some different things going on.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And this may be more for you, Dr. Aguilard, and this may, when Ms. Jody Dion gets up to speak about MP Moss, perhaps if exiting pathways is moved to La Rosen, then maybe one of the programs that could be shifted perhaps is connections, if that's a program that could be easily picked up and moved to where the exiting pathways. It's the younger kids, I guess, but still the overaged middle schoolers. Is that what connections is?
Yes.
So, so probably around the same age group, I guess, as the kids, but just as again, another just idea off the top of my head. So.
Dr. Aguilar, for some of these specialty programs, at what point do you make a decision, or does staff make a decision that is not economical to offer a class that is only serving a limited number of students? Especially if if we're not mandated, there's no legal requirement to offer some specific course. Very similar to like colleges work. If you don't have the minimum enrollment in a classroom and the class gets canceled, then you just, you're out of luck. I know we can't necessarily be that stringent, but there needs to be some sort of, I think, business decision evaluation when you have a teacher that only teaches 26 students all day compared to a teacher, compared to if we use that same money to hire another teacher that may alleviate and teach 100 students in a day. I think we need to get to that point where we're making those decisions.
Well, there is a kind of a point where you're trying to service the needs of those particular kids. And so this idea that you've got to have these jumpstart pathways that lead toward credentials and ultimately a high school diploma makes sense. It doesn't make sense to try to build these terminal courses at each of our high schools. It would not be cost effective to do that. What we're doing is consolidating the interest among all of the high schools at one site, the Career Center. What we have to do is we have to figure out the right terminal courses to offer. Not all of these courses that we're currently running end up in high wage careers, high demand. We have to change our mindset about what are these terminal courses that we want to have in Lafayette Parish. That's why talking to Lita, talking to one Acadiana, helps us refocus what it is we should be offering, because I'm with you on that. Teaching 8 kids in oil and gas means that we haven't done a good job recruiting. We haven't done an excellent job explaining why this is a good terminal course. I think we have to align our resources more carefully with what we have at the Career Center. And since there's not going to be any foreseeable building of a new Career Center, we've got to make do with what we have and build it so that of the 500 or 600 kids who express an interest, we have more than 115 kids who pull the trigger and go to the Career Center. So we're going to do that. I think we're going to try to come back to you with a better plan based on everything we've heard today. This was a good first conversation to say, let's better utilize the facilities, number one, and let's realign our course offerings to match up better with Jumpstart requirements and come back to you knowing that that big elephant in the room is the looming budget discussion where we'll be looking at reducing programs and services. We still have to build what we can.
And Dr. Aguilar, I think you said earlier that it looked like we had $600,000 to $700,000 that could be available to expand the health care. So where are those funds coming from?
Those are already authorized capital funds.
Okay.
And just in working with Kyle and Billy with the capital budget, we did have some reserve monies that were not budgeted. So if we discover that there is another program that we really have to build out, we would come back to the board. You do have some capital monies available if we feel like that's in the best interest of the district.
Dr. Aguilar, this is may be related, may not be related, but when we started our discussion on the temporary classrooms, we acknowledged that we have empty classrooms in certain places. So now that we are not building out anything anytime soon, outside of the wing additions in the new high school, are we looking to consolidate and move programs specifically for some of the empty classrooms?
Actually, we are. We had a good conversation today with Mr. Hefner, so we're going to come back shortly with some recommendations to move some programs. And in looking at some of the preliminary work from Mr. Hefner, the rezoning, which is likely not going to take place in 16-17, but is likely to be a 17-18 event, that is going to significantly shift the population so that we fill up some of these vacant wings and classrooms in the district. We're going to take full advantage of that, and when we do, we are going to save a significant amount of money on transportation cost. So it's not going to help us in 16-17 necessarily, but in 17-18, look for transportation dollars to be saved just through rezoning efforts alone.
Any other questions or comments concerning the W.D. and Mary Baker Smith Center?
No more questions about that, but I would like at the next meeting on this topic to maybe get some information about STEM. I understand that there's a waiting list, but it's not at capacity. So just more information along those lines.
We actually have that information for you today.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Our engineering pathway, we have 140 students. Our biomedical, 129. Dietetics, 23. Environmental science pathway, 17. Technology, 79. And we still have a group of career and tech ed students there, 6. So that gives us a total of 395 high school students that are at David Thibodeau STEM Magnet in the different pathways. They have 476 students in the 6th through 8th grade. So let me see if I can explain a little bit about the slots. Currently at our 6th grade, we have 160 slots that are available for incoming 6th grade students. There was 230 applicants for those 160 slots. In 7th grade, we have 5 slots. Of course, some of the existing 6th graders from this year may have already left, so we know we have currently 5 slots. By the end of the school year, we may have additional slots in 7th grade. We have 58 students who have applied for those 5 slots. In 8th grade, we don't take any more. We don't currently have any slots open, but we do have 29 students that are on the applicant waiting list. And these are eligible applicants because sometimes you may have a larger number of applicants, but once their applications are vetted, they may not be eligible. So again, we have 160 slots in 6th grade with 230 applicants, 5 slots in 5th grade with 58 applicants, 0 slots in 8th grade with 29 applicants, eligible applicants. In 9th grade, again, we have 160 students that we accept in 9th grade. We did have 246 applicants, and let me also say that last night we held the lottery for elementary and middle school. So students at the middle school did receive notification this morning if they were accepted into the academy. Actually, at 5:30 at the federal building, we will be pushing the buttons to have the high school lottery. So we'll get numbers of how many students, we'll have the students accepted. So 9th grade, we have 160 slots. We did have 246 eligible applicants. 10th grade, of course, there was only 10 slots because most of the students are coming back. There may be more slots open by the end of the year. We had 7 eligible applicants for those 10 spots. And in 11th and 12th grade, we don't take applicants unless they come to us from another district, another state with STEM backgrounds already, because it would be too late in the curriculum for a student to come into STEM at 11th grade. So those are some of the numbers that we have. There is an existing wing. They refer to it as a 200 pi, and it is open right now. It is not staffed with classrooms. It has classrooms. It's not staffed with students.
And what would the total capacity be at STEM if all the classrooms were being used?
If the 10 pods contained, say, 25 to 30 students, and there's 10 of those classrooms. So the current enrollment is 840. And then we have those 10 extra classrooms that could possibly hold, 25 to 30. Is that correct, Mr. Debites? So that's 871 total enrollment today, and then the building capacity of 1,500.
And if you can answer, and maybe Mr. Debataz, just I'm not sure if it's being recorded, the meeting. So why is the school not at capacity? What's holding us back from having 1,500 students?
We've been not allowed to get at capacity. We've had numbers capped our first year. We were allocated 100 students. We requested to go to 150 the second year. That request was met last year. We asked to go to 175. That was denied because it was pulling from other academies, and this year we requested to go up as well, and it hasn't been approved.
So if the numbers were approved to increase, then that would give the funding for additional staff, teaching staff, to fill those classrooms for those
Yes, ma'am.
additional students. Okay.
Dr. Aguilar, can you explain that just so we understand? Was it a staggered growth? Was there some sort of philosophy on staggered growth that we wanted to control the growth of the STEM Academy, or was there?
Well, listen, I just asked Joe and Annette just for a little information myself. So as I understand it, just with a couple of seconds, is that there's a fixed amount of money, budgeted money for academies. See, the problem is we ought to be growing the number of students in the academies, but we're holding the budget fixed. So as if STEM, David Thibodeau STEM is pulling students, more students because of the programs, it's pulling money from the other academies. It's taking a larger share of the budget. I think we need to fix that. If we have capacity for more students and we value the STEM experience and we have teachers available and the school has a pod available, I really don't think we want to send 1,500 kids to David Thibodeau, but we could fill up that vacant pod by increasing the budget, and we could do that during the budget cycle. We have to stop that idea that as he pulls, not he, Jeff, but as the school pulls more kids, we're penalizing the other academies by reducing their funding.
Well, I have a question. You mentioned, Ms. Olivier, you mentioned Biomedical Academy, and it's kind of in my brain because it starts, at least some of it starts at Karen Crowe Middle School.
Yes, sir.
Is there a Biomedical Academy at the STEM
Yes, sir.
and at Lafayette High?
It's actually referred to as Allied Health Program at Lafayette High. And at David Thibodeau, it's a biomedical pathway.
Is there a significant difference in those two programs?
I do have some information on, I referred to earlier the credentials, because currently the students in the Allied Health Program, the Allied Health Program has a great relationship with Acadian Ambulance in the EMS program. So those students are earning the EMS, the EMR, the BLS, the CPR, CNA credentials. Currently in the biomedical program, it's more geared currently to a college-bound pathway that they're not earning any credentials. So there are some similarities in some of the coursework. The end point of the credentialing is different. And as I said, we're again looking at the three different similar but yet different pathways to see if we could possibly do some consolidation in the future.
So when those students who leave Karen Crowe Elementary School in the biomedical, where do the majority of them go?
I don't have the data on where the majority of them go, but they would have a choice to either go to Lafayette High or go to David Thibodeau when they leave the Karen Crowe Biomedical. You also have to remember that David Thibodeau is still growing into its plan because, again, this class, this senior year, is the last students that were registered as a comprehensive career and tech high school. So we haven't had a senior class that's fully a David Thibodeau STEM class. I also wanted to go back and comment about connections and exiting pathways. We do have a plan, of course, that those programs will be diminished over the next 2 years, so they won't be as big of a factor for us in our space and capacity. That program will be sunsetting, if you will, because those students, again, will be logging in, registering into a Jumpstart pathway instead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's very interesting.
Yes, sir.
I'm learning a lot.
And I will say, before we move on to NP Moss, I was very, very impressed when I toured W.D. Smith. I would love to see that school at full capacity, whatever we put there. I think it's a good, solid school. And I'm excited to see what kind of ideas. I hope that our recruiting methods work to get all those kids there, because I think that it is definitely an area. And I know we have our legislative breakfast coming up very soon over there, so I'm excited to see the kitchen in action.
Dr. Aguilar, I just wanted to revisit. I know you're just kind of figuring this out, but so the Academy Schools of Choice have a fixed amount of funding. Is that a finite dollar amount that we set every year? So, yeah, I think we just have an accounting issue then. If the money's truly following the student to the academy, then we should have a savings than wherever that student came from. I think maybe we just need to be a little more flexible on.
So I think what you're experiencing in this budget is for supplies and services for that school year. So it's not a matter of MFP dollars or the child's dollars following that child to the new school. It's the cost of the specialized classes.
Actually,
so the
increased
budget
cost to educate that child.
Yes.
All right.
If I could also add, for example, when we expanded with our junior ROTC academies, we actually had to take money from everybody's academy accounts in order to fund that new academy, that new school of choice.
But it was only the increased cost per pupil, or was it for the entire cost of education for the pupil?
It's the entire cost of the education for the school of choice program.
Okay, but it's still an accounting issue, because that kid is now in an academy, they're not in the non-academy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I understand that there's a delta for educating kids in a specialized training, but it seems like it's an accounting issue otherwise.
Well, I think it's more complex than that. We've got thresholds for entry into all of these academies, and so we're hampered by. We want to grow the programs, but if we grow the programs, it's going to cost more money because of the specialized courses. I think as a board, you need to pay attention, and we'll call it to your attention when we get to that line item and show you the budget and see if we have the will or the capacity to add more money. If we add more money to the budget, we might be able to have more students in these academies.
And save on construction of wings of 10 classroom wings.
Absolutely. This could help us. This could help with some of the overcrowding at some of the high schools. If we move more kids into an empty pod, makes sense.
Thank you.
All right. Very interesting. The next item is going to be an overview of NP Moss Preparatory in regards to the current programs, current enrollment numbers, capacity of the facility, and potential future plans. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Jody Duyon, principal of NP Moss. The handouts that you have two. They're basically the same thing. One of them is a PowerPoint where every slide is for a different program on Moss's campus. And then the legal size sheet, thank you. The legal size sheet is an at a glance. So rather than flipping back and forth through pages, you can see everything, the main details on one page.
We didn't get a legal size.
Oh.
Mr. Craig?
I'd like to go over the PowerPoint with you, just to give you the most detailed information. The one thing that I didn't include is the breakdown, the ethnic breakdown, but I do have that information, but it's not on your PowerPoint. So the campus enrollment, the total enrollment of NPMOS as of February 26th was 402. 21% of that population is special education students, and 34% of that population are 504 students. And to break it down, 73% of our students are African American, 23% are white, 3% are Hispanic, 0.7% are Asian, and 0.3% are Hawaiian Pacific Islander. So that kind of gives you a little bit more information about the breakdown. Thank you. We are, as far as the male-female breakdown, we are by far majority males on our campus, but I don't have that specific percentage. The programs housed at NPMOS, we have Connections, we have Prep Behavior Level 1, we have Prep Behavior Level 2, AMI, we have the virtual high school, and then we also have a segment of virtual learning. And so I'll just go through each one of those with you on an individual slide. For Connections, the population is the overage 6th and 7th graders. They're either currently 15 years old, or during that particular school year they will turn 15. And that's how they qualify to be part of that program. The goal for Connections is to help the students increase their academic ability to prepare them to pass the spring state assessments and inner high school. And if they are able to pass an inner high school, if they pass all of their credits in the Connections program, they'll be able to enter with 6 elective credits. And if they don't pass the state assessment and move into the high school, then at that point, that's the group of students that moves into exiting pathways. So that's how that branches off. The capacity enrollment, the total capacity is 126 students. We started the year this year with 116 students, and right there, just for your information, I put the breakdown as to how many students came from each of the middle schools. If the middle school is not listed, that means that we didn't get any students from that middle school. The current enrollment is 107. In that particular program, 30% of the students are SPED and 33% are 504. 90% of the students are 15 years old or older, and 10% are age 14, turning 15 this year. The allocated classroom space, this program uses 10 classrooms and also the gym on the Moss Prep campus, and that'll make sense talking about the gym as I get to another slide. And then the teaching staff, there are 11 teachers in the Connections program. 5 of them are SPED and 6 of them are regular education teachers. Connections runs as an inclusion model. In the event that in the future we would have the space, I would definitely be interested in trying something different, because I think that it makes their class sizes larger, and we haven't had the opportunity to see if trying it a different way would possibly be more effective. So that's something I would like to try in the future with Connections, if we would be able to have the space to do so. Okay. The Prep Behavior Level 1, the population consists of students from Lafayette Parish base schools who have been recommended for expulsion or for a change of placement from their base school. And our goal is to assist students in learning the positive behaviors and self-management skills that will allow them to be successful upon their return. Our goal for Level 1 is for it to be a short-term program, with the end goal being that they return back to their base school. In addition, we do work to maintain the students' current academic pace and provide interventions that will help to reinforce the foundational skills in their reading and math. We find that a lot of our kids come to us lacking some of those foundational skills, so we try to focus in on that. Elementary students are assigned for a minimum of 20 days. Middle and high school students are assigned for a minimum of 45 days. So that kind of gives you an idea of how that runs. The capacity, if you look at the total capacity of NPMOS being 500, if you subtract all of the other programs, the numbers say that the capacity for Level 1 should be about 285. But to just blanketly say that doesn't really work. So that's why I put what our capacity is by grade level. In the elementary grades, we have a single classroom for each grade, and so we do have a max amount of kids that can be in there for it to be effective. And so that's why I listed K1 is 15, second is 15, all the way up to 5th grade. The capacity in those classrooms are 15, and then for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, the capacity is 30 for each grade level. And then for the high school, typically it's 45. This year we had a really big influx of high school students, and so we've done a few things differently to be able to, right now we have 67 high school students on the campus. So we've been able to be creative in some of the ways that we handle that to try to keep as many of them here and not having to refer to virtual learning. So we have, in addition to this, we have 3 self-contained classrooms, 1 elementary, 1 middle, and 1 high. We also have 1 resource class, and additionally we have 2 inclusion teachers that are able to offer resource minutes within the regular classroom setting. So we, like I said, we just have to get really creative about how we approach things to try to offer services to as many students as we can. We currently, in the level 1, have 173 kids. Of those, 22% are SPED, 35% are 504. In K1, currently, we have 6 students. 2nd grade, we have 14. 3rd grade, 7. 4th grade, we have 5. Now, with the 4th grade having 5, you'll see that in our 5th grade, we're at 15 students. So that 4th grade teacher does some work with the 5th grade students. She will pull them out at certain times and be able to offer 4th grade lessons and 5th grade lessons going on in her classroom. Luckily, her para is a certified teacher, so we definitely use that to our advantage of having, even though she's a para, she is a certified teacher, we use that for her to be able to offer some assistance to that 5th grade class that is pretty much at capacity. 6th grade, we're at 18. 7th grade, we're at 15. 8th grade, we're at 26. And like I said, high school, we're at 67. What we've done with the 6th and 7th grade that aren't quite at capacity, at some points in the day, we have these content certified teachers go into the high school areas because our high school kids all work on Edgenuity, on the Edgenuity curriculum. And so what we do is we have our science teachers go in at some point, every content area go in at some point to offer the kids on virtual access to a content certified teacher to assist them with anything that they may be struggling with. But now 2 weeks ago, 2nd grade was at 13, and then it drops down. So we make those modifications as the numbers change, and we offer services to other students on campus with whatever staff seems to have low numbers. And it seems to work pretty well. So the students that we've served in level 1 for the 2015-16 school year, we've served 559 students. And of those, we currently still have 173. Underneath there, again, for your information, I just listed the schools and how many we've served from each school in the parish. The allocated classrooms for level 1, we have 24 classrooms, and the teaching staff, we have 26. We have 9 SPED and 17 regular ed teachers that manage this part of the campus. And if y'all have questions, please stop me. The prep behavior level 2, this is something, oh, I'm sorry.
Before you move on, it might be easier. Why do you get so many more referrals from Acadiana High School than from the others?
Typically with the high schools, and I could go through and look at the specific reasons why, a lot of the cases with the high schools are drugs. And those are, no questions asked, they're coming to us.
Well, for instance, the numbers you give, Acadiana has referred 69, or you've received 69. That may not be the referrals. Karen Crow, Lafayette, and Como are in the 40s, and then Northside is 27, but I know it's a much smaller
Yeah, that's what I was going to
school.
say. You also have to look at the populations. I think the numbers are pretty proportionate based on the populations of the schools. But we do keep records of what the students have come to us, the referral reasons, so I could certainly get that information to you.
Okay, and you may address this later, but you use the Fast Forward program in all of these different programs?
Yes, every student on the campus does Fast Forward.
And how is that working for you?
It's really working very well. We do struggle. One of the frustrations for me is that we don't have a set population of kids. So it seems like right when everybody's on board with Fast Forward, then we get in a new crew of students and they want to fight. So, but we go to kind of extreme measures. One of the things that I did not do correctly this year is have Fast Forward running throughout the day. So basically we don't have any leverage that way. For instance, if they've already gone to PE, then we don't have the leverage of saying, hey, if you don't do this now, we'll keep you in for PE and you'll have to do it then. So next year, my goal is to have it all done first thing in the morning for two reasons. First of all, to be able to do that, to have something to hold over them, to encourage them to get it done. And then secondly, to be able to offer the interventions throughout the day. Because if we have a student in, the last period of the day who's struggling, then once that period's over with, they go home and we don't have the opportunity to offer them when it would be meaningful. Coming back the next day, it's like starting all over from scratch. So there's several reasons why we want to run it that way. But my most important reason is to encourage them to get it done. But we'll call in parents, we explain why. With our I'm sure with all kids, but especially with our population, they have to know why. So whenever you explain the reasons why, and now we have a little bit of data where we can show them, the growth because I think from our fall to our winter NWEA, approximately 70% of our population has shown some growth in reading. It may be 1 point, some of them have grown 20-something points. We even had a couple of kids grow over 30 points in their reading from the fall to the winter administration of the NWEA. So we show them that stuff, and it's, we'll say, hey, do you know AJ? And they know AJ, and so we'll get AJ to kind of come in, and we use that leverage, and so it really works.
I think it would be a great idea for those students to have a video similar to the one that we've seen on Fast Forward with the football players.
I think,
to
yeah,
show the
I mean,
progress.
they would definitely be very encouraged by that. I think some of them are surprised by the growth that they've shown, and I'm anxious for spring testing. I'm hoping that it makes them want to try, because I think there's a misconception. I think that people think that the kids at Moss can't do, when in the large majority of the cases they won't do it. So if you can find something that'll spark something in them to make them want to do it, our kids, they're capable. They just, I don't know why, for many reasons, but they just choose not to. So level 2, the population and the goal. Well, first, let me tell you about level 2. Level 2 is something that we came to Dr. Aguilar about in the summer, and we asked if we could have permission to attempt a program where we brought in drill instructors to assist us with some of our students. And so then we opened what became known as level 2. This population consists of students who are 12 and up in most cases. There's been one case where we did refer an 11-year-old into this program, but he was a student that was so street savvy that he was mentally much older than his age. The enrollment, we currently have 20 in this program. 20% of them are SPED, 55 or 504. We've had a total of 45 kids go through this level 2 for this school year. 9 of the students have completed successfully, and the most exciting thing for me is that not one of them has been referred back. And that, to me, that's very, very encouraging, because we do tend to see at Moss, we do kind of tend to see a lot of the same students rolling through multiple times. 16 of the students have either withdrawn or they've had a change of placement within NP Moss. We have 3 classrooms allocated for this level 2, and it has 2 teachers, 1 SPED teacher and 1 regular ed teacher. AMI. AMI is the American Marine Institute. It's they are housed at NP Moss, and they work with our kids, and the kids that are in AMI are still our kids, AMI just offers them more structured services. The population here consists of students who exhibit the more aggressive and violent behaviors. These students were unsuccessful in either level 1 and or level 2. Students can be assigned to AMI by the administration of NPMOS, and the minimum age for this program is 12. The goal of this program is to provide intense behavioral interventions to students. Remediation and academic interventions are priority for our struggling students, and we do have some students back there who are working on level, and so those students we can provide academics for them, again using the Edgenuity curriculum. The enrollment in AMI is 32. Their capacity is 30. However, they work with us really, really well. And there are some students actually that are approaching exit. And so at times like that, if we need to, they allow us to overload a little bit. There are 25% SPED, 47% 504. Allocated classrooms are 2. The only teaching staff that we provide is 1 special education teacher. AMI provides the rest of the teaching staff for the program. Okay. The virtual high school, which
Before you
I'm
move
sorry,
on.
I'm sorry.
All right, and these are probably more for Dr. Aguilar. So Dr. Aguilar, AMI is a third-party vendor that we are paying to provide services for these level 3 kids.
Yes.
And what is the cost of AMI?
You're putting me on the spot there. It's about $12,000 per child. So the school district pays the bulk of that expense. We are getting a little bit of money from the Sheriff's Department, from LCG, as well as the District Attorney's Office. But I think combined it's slightly less than $100,000. We're picking up the bulk of that cost.
And did I understand when I toured your facility this afternoon that we have ordered 2 additional temporary buildings to be used in this program?
No.
Okay.
2 additional temporary buildings have come over to us. And I'll get to this whenever I talk about the future.
Okay.
We're looking to expand the level 2 program because we do see that it's so successful with our students. And so we are looking to be able to expand that. And so our intent right now, not to say that this is what it's going to be in August, but right now our intent would be to move level 2 and have level 2 and AMI in that area in the back. And then that would open up the Butler buildings in the middle, in the front of the campus by the bus lane, where we could pull some additional elementary out of that main building to try to keep them further separated as much as possible.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
For these programs, you mentioned the goal, and I guess I'm looking for some sort of quantitative success measure. How do you measure the success of connections or level 1, level 2, or AMI? I see with level 2, you talk about 16 students who I think you mentioned you haven't had any of those students return back for referral.
Correct. The 9 that have exited,
9 that have
correct.
exited. How do you measure the success of the rest of the programs?
With connections, we actually measure those successes by the number of students who are able to be successful on the state testing. That's how we look at how we've prepared them, because that's what the teachers are focusing on preparing them for. And then with all of the other segments that deal with behavior, at the end of the year we look at recidivism rates. We look at all of the kids who have left and how many have had to come back. So that's basically how we look at our success there. We've also started something actually since Christmas, and I'm excited to see if it's going to make a difference. We've started a follow-up program where our staff actually go out into the schools and follow up with the students who have left us. We try to communicate really closely with the base schools, and we ask them to please call us the minute that they see something, the first time that he's in your office after he's returned to your campus. Please call us. We will send people over there. We want to be a support to the schools whenever the kids go back. And we also want the kids to know that we're not just done with them. So we're trying that to see if that's going to be of assistance in helping them maintain at the base schools. So I'm anxious to look at the second half of the year data and see if that makes any difference.
Yeah. And you don't have to tell us now, but I think it would be interesting to the board to know what the success rates are for each program. And unless you know them offhand.
And I don't, and I was determined I was going to have everything that you guys would ask for, and I didn't do that, and we typically don't do that until the end of the year, but I can certainly let you know very quickly tomorrow. I mean, we keep a database. I can let you know very quickly how many students have returned from each program. Okay. Now, the same thing goes with, we've had a few students exit AMI, and a couple of schools have called and went, oh my God, they're coming. And my explanation to them is that students who are coming to you from level 2 and AMI are the most trained students that you're going to get back, because they've been living in the most structured environment. So I don't expect our level 2 students to be returning to us, and I have the same expectation for the AMI kids, because they focus so strongly on discipline, anger management, self-monitoring, those types of behaviors. And then again, we're hoping that the follow-up program, if they do start slipping, that the follow-up program is going to help maybe get them back on track.
Was there talk about requiring level 2 before you send the level 1 kids back to school? Like they go through level 1, then they have to go through level 2?
No,
or is it not
no,
work that
sir.
way?
Going from level 1 to level 2 is a negative thing. Mm-hmm. Basically, and what we found in level 1 is that the kids who go to level 2 are your mid-level behavior kids. The behaviors aren't strong enough to require AMI, but they're enough to cause severe disruptions in level 2. And so one of the things that we didn't even think of is that removing disruptive students from level 1, the kids in level 1 have been able to do their time, not do their time. They've been able to complete their 45 days and be able to return back to their base schools, because the typical disruptions that have been there in the past are no longer there. So we're finding that it's been beneficial for level 2 for our 6th and 7th grade classes not to be at capacity in February has been unheard of since we opened in 2012.
Okay. My next question's for Dr. Aguilar. It appears that this whole cost center is a total duplication of effort or cost. So the students in this program, we're only getting paid for once, right, with tax money and MFP, yet we're having to maintain the overhead of this facility and the staffing of this facility and their original spot in their original classroom.
Yes.
Right? And this is more of a question just so that I'm
So did you want me to react to that observation?
It's an observation, and an unfortunate observation.
Well, let me just give you some thoughts. I think what we're seeing is a couple things. We're seeing kids who are falling behind academically, so they tend to create discipline problems. So you need to remove them from the normal setting and put them somewhere. You need to educate these kids. But we're seeing the ramifications of kids who are not academically strong. And we're also seeing the negative impacts of retention rates meant merely to punish children because of failure. That's why we've got this growing population of connection students who matriculate into exiting pathways. You add all of those numbers together, we've got a population of 400 students that are either at the middle school level or the high school level in their cohort group that are not pursuing a high school diploma. That's the landscape where it's costing us a ton of money. Mm-hmm. A ton of money and accountability, just academic performance for the schools and the district. We do have plans in place to begin to address the overage population. That's going to help the connections pipeline, try to close that down, reduce the number of connection students. In 2 or 3 years, we'll reduce the number of exiting pathways students. if we do this right, in 2, 3, or 4 years, we'll start to see all of these numbers drop and dip downward. That'll mean we're on the right track to solving these societal problems and academic deficiencies in the district. I want to commend Jody, particularly about Fast Forward. Many of these kids are coming from schools who don't have Fast Forward licenses. We only have licenses in about half of the schools. So they're coming to Moss Prep. The elementary kids are there probably only 20 days. The middle and high school kids there 45 days. But they're putting them in front of a very, very successful reading intervention program that dramatically changes capacity. You don't have to do this for long periods of time, and you start to see reading gains. So we have a lot of good things happening, but you're right. These are cost centers that we have to do something about to reduce our overhead cost. Or these things are going to be like a cancer, just going to continue to grow and pull capacity and money out of the system.
And I guess my final question is, I'm sure that you're continually evaluating the programs and seeing if a minimum of 45 days is adequate, or is it more disruption to send the child back to, their regular school, or have you considered once a child's in this school that they have to finish out either the semester or the term?
Actually, they come to my office when they are seeking a waiver to be readmitted to their base school. So I get every request. Is that right? Every request?
Every waiver request.
Every waiver request comes to my office. Steve Frugier and I sit down and we go over the appeal packet. I'm happy to say that we're now into March, and thus far, and only today, I've seen only one instance of a repeat offender coming to my office for a second recommended expulsion appeal. So I think the program is working. They go to Moss Prep, they do their time, as you call it. When they leave there, they leave with conditions. They've been told that they cannot be involved in any additional suspendable offense. If so, they're recommended for expulsion at that event. So that seems to work for the vast majority of disciplined kids. They go back with conditions, and we never see them again at Moss Prep.
Large majority.
Thank you.
And one of the things, just to give you a little bit more information, before any student is approved for exit, I have to sign off on it because I want to be fully responsible for what's going back. And so for that purpose, the teachers have to submit to me. Every student has an advisory binder while they're on our campus. And so before a student can be officially put up for exit, I have to go through the binder, and there's a whole list of things that the teachers have to provide. We have data cards on each one of our students where it shows that they've not only done their fast forward, but that they're actually working towards progressing in the fast forward. There is a separate data card that shows the students, every student when they come in, they are, if they don't come into us with a behavior plan, they are assigned a behavior plan that focuses on goals that are specific to the events that brought them to us. And then there's also just a generic goal that says completes all assignments, which is where the fast forward comes in, because that's actually a condition of exit. If you're not completing the fast forward, you won't be making your goals, so then therefore you can't exit. So that's also another incentive for them to make sure and get it done. So the teachers have to turn this into me so that I can know that they've been monitoring what the students been doing while they've been with us. They also have to turn into me their Review 360. This is every day the students carry a point sheet with them to every class, and every teacher that they go to grades them on their goals for that day. Each student's specific goals are listed on the point sheet. They get either a 0, 1, or 2 every period of the day. At the end of the day, all of this data is entered into the Review 360 program, which produces this summary report. So whenever I get a binder, I look, and whenever I look, they have to have the appropriate number of days, and they must be meeting every one of their goals. If they're not meeting every one of their goals, at that point the binder is denied and it's returned back to the teacher. So now they don't even send them to me unless they are fully meeting every one of their goals. And then also what they must send to me is they must send me the student's current report card, and it's got to be complete. I will not allow a student to go back to a base school with any missing grades, because then that causes confusion in trying to catch up. So they must make sure that every grade that Moss Prep should have been assigning is accurate and is entered in. And then they must also, then at that point, I look at the student's discipline. When a student is attending Moss Prep, if they receive a major infraction, then at that point their time is extended. I don't care if you're meeting your goals. If you've done something that causes a major infraction to be put into webpams, at that point your time is extended. It depends on what the infraction is. If you're refusing to do something, that won't be as much time as if you get into a fight. Anytime that a student does get denied due to discipline, at that point we just make sure and meet with them real quick, explain to them what's going on. The administrative team, we kind of have a schedule of what extensions would be added for different infractions, and so then at that point we let the student know and we let the parent know what's going on, and that, if nothing else that will typically straighten them up at that point, and they'll realize that we're serious about, I can't send you back unless I'm confident. And so unless all of this is in order, they're not leaving us. Does that make sense? And also, if a student is removed from level 1 and put into level 2, then their 45-day period starts over again from day 1. So there's some pretty steep consequences to not conforming to what it is that we expect.
So do you have some students who end up staying with you for the entire school year?
We have some students that have been with us for several years.
But those students still have a home-based school that
Yes.
the MFP goes to?
Yes.
It seems like Dr. Aguilar, at some point, if a student's at the school beyond a certain number of days, and the MFP should follow the kid to that school. Just seems like.
Well, I mean,
But-
they're a school, so, they get
Right.
they get an accountability score, and
Right.
the MFP monies come to us. There are kids, speaking from experience in St. Mary Parish, there are kids that annually end up at a district's discipline school.
Yes.
That happen in St. Mary Parish. They feel more comfortable
They do.
at that setting than the normal school setting. They typically, most of them get returned back to the base school, at least they did in St. Mary Parish, and within the first 10 weeks of school, they got processed back to the St. Mary alternative school site.
Right.
It's just, it's the way of life for some of these
It
kids.
is.
Do we allow that for an option for the child to choose to stay?
Well, that's something I haven't yet spoken with Dr. Aguilar about. But you see, like, this is where I don't know what to do. I received a call today from a school, and it's a student who was ours for all of last year and a portion of this year, and he earned his way out, and today told the SRO on his campus, I will do whatever I have to do to get back to NP Moss. I don't know what to do with that.
See, I'm not sure that the services there provide an appropriate, complete, 100%
Right.
traditional elementary, middle school, or high school
Right.
experience.
Right.
But you know they're coming back.
Yes, and I think a lot of it is the structure. We don't have, the children don't have the freedom they don't switch. Every time they switch classes, there are at least 6 people, adults, standing in the hallway monitoring. And for some of them, I've learned over the time that it seems to give them a sense of security. I think that they feel secure here. I think that because we do have lower numbers, they do get more individualized attention. They flourish. Some of our kids just flourish in our setting, and that's where the difficulty comes in, is when you have parents that say, I don't want them to leave, but we only have 15 spots for this grade level. Then at that point, we don't know what to do. But Dr. Aguilar's right. We have our base population that will come back to us, and we know that they will. But the deal is that once they've met all of the criteria that we've set, we have to honor our successful completion criteria, and we have to allow them to go.
And Mr. Knezik, we did advertise early this school year for our virtual learning program, and Jody has a component of virtual
sir.
learning. We do allow students to really complete a full year of education virtually. It's very difficult because it's independent work, but there are ways that school systems can allow for a differentiated learning environment that would help some of these kids.
Right.
So virtual learning is something brand new that we're just developing, but that may be a route that parents would sign off on to allow their children to receive a full education virtually.
Yes.
I have a question on the I know we're about to go into the virtual high school learning. Do we know what a virtual high school education costs us as a system to administer?
Yeah, I think we do. I just don't have a dollar figure on the cost for the courses, but it's very cost effective for us.
And the Edgenuity program that we use, it's very rigorous. I don't know if you've experienced it at all, but it was what we used when I was principal at Charter High, and it is extremely rigorous. So it's not, I feel very good about it in that the kids aren't, it's not dumbed down or anything like that. It's extremely rigorous. So whenever they do earn a credit, they have truly earned that credit. Okay, ready? So the virtual high school, this is one room where we have maintained the same concept as we had when we had Lafayette Charter High School. This population consists of high school students who, for one reason or another, they just need a non-traditional setting to be able to earn the high school diploma. They don't want a high set, they don't want to drop out, they want the high school diploma, but there are certain obstacles that they're facing. Many of them have children. Some of them are living on their own at 17 and they have to work full time to support themselves. We have some kids who have been diagnosed with severe medical conditions who simply can't handle the numbers at the base schools. So these students come, and of course, these are our at-risk high school students. They're at risk of dropping out. So we offer this where they attend a minimum of 3 hours a day and they work on coursework that is directly geared towards their high school diploma. So, and then again, the goal of this program is to allow students a non-traditional path to help to avoid high school dropout. The enrollment in this class is 31 right now. The teacher in the classroom runs 2 sessions. We have some students that'll come to the 3 hour in the morning, some that'll come to the 3 hour in the afternoon. We have some that stay all day long. So it's just basically, it's based on what their exterior circumstances are, and we accommodate them with that. Now, this is something too that they also have to maintain their attendance. They have to maintain their progress because this is seen as, for us, it's viewed as an opportunity. And if they don't handle it appropriately, then at that point, we will in May refer them back to their base high school for the next school year, so that we make sure that we keep the credibility of this portion of the school. And we have 1 teacher in this classroom. So virtual learning, this is the off-campus virtual learning that I'm referring to now. The population on virtual learning consists of non-SPED and non-504 students who have been assigned to NPMOS and enrolled in virtual learning for one of the following reasons. We have some students whose parents request that they're able to do virtual learning. Sometimes it may be an issue of transportation. Sometimes it may be that they don't want their children coming to NPMOS. So we do have parents that request that their students be on virtual learning. In the event that the student's grade level has exceeded the capacity, luckily this has only happened in our high school, and we were actually able to open up 2 more high school rooms. So there's a few in high school that are on virtual for other reasons, but the majority of the high school kids that are on virtual were at the parents' request. if the student has been assigned to NPMOS for a second time in 1 year, we're trying to stop the revolving door that has gone on. And so now you leave us. If you get assigned to us for a second time, then virtual learning is an option that's on the table. And so that we have found, I feel like, I haven't run the numbers yet, but I'm excited too, because I feel like the recidivism rate has definitely decreased from past years. And if the student has been recommended for expulsion from us, then at that point, virtual learning becomes an opportunity. The goal of the program is to allow the students to continue the coursework when they've been removed from their base school and or NPMOS. We do have a staff member at NPMOS who does orientation with the family and the student when they're referred to virtual learning, and she also monitors their progress in the program. If after 5 days they haven't signed on, she's referring them to truancy. So we do manage this pretty strictly, so that it's not a way for them to just go home and not have to do anything. Truancy becomes involved if they're not doing the coursework, and so we find that we're having some luck with that as well. Some of the kids whose parents request that they go on virtual, if Ms. Lewis finds that they're steadily not making any progress, at that point we'll call the parent and revoke that, and then they have to return back to the campus. We'll send them a lot of times home working on virtual under those conditions, and the parents sign off on it. The enrollment in our virtual learning right now is 39, no classrooms and no teaching staff.
So, Mr. Knezek, Ms. Samick advised me the Edgenuity contract for the year is $70,000 for the district.
And isn't that like 6th grade all the way through?
Yes.
All the high school courses?
So, Ms. Dion,
Yes, ma'am.
on the virtual learning, so if a parent chooses or the child is eligible for virtual learning, how does that work? Is it from the computers they already have at home? What happens with the kids who don't have computers at home?
Then those are the kids that we need to have with us on campus.
All right, so if it's a family who, for whatever financial reasons, don't have a computer at home, they don't get the option of virtual learning. They have to go to the physical facility.
Well, and what we offer is we have some students who may live near a library or any public area that offers internet with computers. They can access it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
In the meeting about virtual learning, we give to the parents all of the library locations and all of the community center locations that offer free internet access.
Okay, so of all the programs that you've talked about, virtual high school and connections are not discipline-based.
Right. And we if you ever come to our campus, you'll see several different color shirts. The disciplined students are in the navy shirts. The gray shirts are for connections and the virtual high school. And then the light blue shirts, the light green shirts are AMI. So if you come and you see a student with a gray shirt walking unescorted, that's fine. If we walk around and we see a navy blue or a light green unescorted, then that becomes an issue. We know immediately by the color of their shirts, we know what privileges they have on the campus.
Dr. Aguilar, I have a question on the virtual learning. Do we offer these services to other high school kids in the district
We do.
so that they could take courses to maybe graduate faster
Yes.
or to supplement?
Yes, that happens.
Do we know how many we have enrolled total in the district?
Several hundred, yes. 1,200, yes, sir.
Brian says 1,200 students taking advantage of virtual courses.
I'm not familiar with how this program works. Does it require a certified teacher to monitor the child's progress, or is it totally online?
I can answer that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Kuti, Jared oversees the program. He can
Yes.
monitor, how often they're logging on? Are they behind in the coursework? Are they on track in the coursework? As a parent, both of my kids have gone through E2020 classes just to raise their GPA. And so every morning I get an email. They do go to a proctored site for some of their assessments.
Right.
But they work every day on their own, as many hours a day, they can knock it out.
And within Edgenuity, the great thing about it, you only need a proctor because every teacher who is on the videos in Edgenuity, they are highly qualified and certified teachers. So the kids are having certified, highly qualified teachers instruct them on the computer, and then anybody else that's helping them is just offering the assistance.
Well, it seems like a really economical program, so I'm hoping that we could maybe expand it and promote it within the district.
We are doing that. Jared's been doing an excellent job. That's why we advertised virtually. It's a win-win for the district. Little cost, $70,000 for the whole suite of software packages. But then if we get a child in, a homeschool child or a child from another district who needs a course, we get credit, MFP dollars, for those courses.
How does that work if they're, I mean, my kids are homeschooled or were homeschooled. They're grown now, but mostly grown. But how does that work with the MFP dollars? If we can, I mean, there are probably several hundred homeschooled kids within Acadiana or at least Lafayette Parish. How can we attract them, and how much of the MFP money do we get?
Well, if we can attract them, and we are really trying to attract them, there's closer to 500 homeschool students identified by the Department of Education from Lafayette alone. If we can get those kids to come back and take enough courses to be full-time, then we get the $5,000 of MFP dollars for that child.
And what is full-time?
Well, full-time would probably be at least 4 classes.
Oh, let's try that. Thank you.
Okay, a couple of questions.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
No,
So,
that's okay.
Dr. Aguilar, is there any way, or maybe Ms. Dion, to follow up on the kids who leave NPMOS as far as the fast forward? I know you said all the schools do not have the license. Are we working towards getting licenses for all of the schools?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we did have that in our tax proposition. We're just going to have to keep identifying the schools. Now, kids can go online and use Fast Forward. It's online. That doesn't help a child who doesn't have a home computer, but we're working as I keep coming back to the budget. The budget is the big elephant in the room. We got a lot of needs to expand and improve services and programs.
Right.
Yeah, we have to get past this budgeting process.
Right, so it seems then that there should be a way to track the kids who leave NPMOS and go to schools that do not have Fast Forward, and then make sure that those kids and parents are being told how to access it online and where the computers are available at local libraries and community centers.
And we haven't done that, but I think we can. We can direct them to the online version.
Definitely. And one of the things that we want to do, Ms. Morris, is at the end of the year, we want to contact the base schools and ask if we can actually have either a report of test scores or something, benchmarking of the students who have left us, so that we can look and see, because I mean our school score, it's atrocious. There's no other way to say it. But we don't know if what we're doing is impacting them back at their base school. And so that's the thing that I would like to know is, even though we don't get that score, did they improve whenever they return back? So then at least that would let us know the effectiveness of our measures. And if we're not seeing that kind of improvement, then we know that we need to look at doing things a different way. But I'm really, and Ms. Hernandez, we had a meeting and I asked her, what is the minimum number of time for students to be able to experience sustained growth? And she said in the 45 days, if it's done with fidelity, she said that that's plenty of time for them to see growth even after they've left us and through the rest of the school year. So I'm kind of excited to research that at the end of the year.
And just, Jody, for your information, I think you already know this, the kids who are only there 20 days, you don't get that accountability score for that child because they come to you and they leave you.
Right.
But the kids that are with you longer periods of time, those are the kids that we need to make sure are in your Fast Forward labs, because you get accountability scores because they've been at your school long enough for accountability to kick in.
Yes, sir.
So it'll be interesting because the Moss Prep Fast Forward results are amazing. I want to just say that to you. So it'll be interesting to see, particularly in ELA, if we see a bump in ELA science and social studies scores for this population of students.
Right. And what I'm most excited for is for the connection students, because that's our stable population. And the thing is that they are getting 50 minutes of fast forward 5 days a week. So we have kids in connections who are, they've done literacy, they've done literacy advanced, they're now into like reading 3. We even have a couple of students who are in reading 5. So they are moving through probably like getting triple doses, you know, of what it may be if it would only be a 3-day-a-week intervention or whatever. So I am really looking forward to seeing what happens with the connection students, because that is our stable population that are here with us from start to finish. So I think that's going to be our true view of how we're doing with the whole program.
Okay, I have a couple of comments and then a question. First of all, I did tour your school today, and I want to say that your staff does an outstanding job. The entire campus was immaculate.
Thank you.
Also, the artwork on the exterior of the school and the hallway was just absolutely gorgeous, and I really think that you should advertise that and get it out to let people know what's going on over at your school. Third, I'm very intrigued by the drill sergeants. I met both of them. To be honest, they scared me a little bit, but
That's the point.
they were both very friendly, and I'm excited to hear that you're going to try to expand that.
Yes, ma'am.
With the female drill sergeant.
Yes, ma'am.
My question, and I know Mr. Knezik has been active in getting the ROTC going in all the different high schools. I don't know all the details of how you can get ROTC in schools, but it seems that it might be a good segue for students leaving your school going back, if there could be some form, maybe not the full ROTC, but some level of it, and then have some of those kids come and present the arms here, like some of the other schools have been doing as well. So I don't know what the feasibility of that is, but it seems to be maybe something to look at.
You know, and I think that they would love that. I think one of the things, and I expressed that to you earlier, is that a lot of the kids on our campus have never been recognized for anything. So I think all of these pieces coming into play, you know, them seeing experience with the fast forward, maybe seeing some improvement with the fast forward, seeing some improvement on their benchmarking. I think it's going to start to instill a little bit of confidence, and then being praised. They earn rewards each week for doing the fast forward, and they're pretty big rewards. And so, 2 days out of every week, they can be out of uniform if they're meeting their participation and meeting their completion goals in fast forward. So they're being recognized positively for these things. And again, we have groups coming in that are now starting to work with them. So I think we're starting to turn a corner. We still have such a long way to go, but I think we're finally starting to turn a corner. And the more positive that we can throw their way, I think the more confident they're going to become. And then I think at some point it can start just snowballing for them into positive things, is what I'm hoping for. And I'm hoping that our follow-up program is going to go along with that too, to give them a little bit of confidence whenever they're returning back to the base school, because that's got to be a hard transition for a kid. Everybody knows that you were gone and now you're coming back, and we try to prepare our kids for kind of, being a target for the other kids. They want to see, have you changed since you've been back? And so what you get from the other kids may be a little bit tougher than it may have been if you would have never left, because they kind of want to see what you're made of. So we know that it's a lot of transition, and we just want to be able to offer supports, but definitely anything that can be positive recognition and positive praise, I think is going to go a long way. And believe it or not, they're tough and they act tough, but everybody wants that. Everybody wants to be told they're doing a good job. Everybody wants to be commended whenever they do the right thing. And so I think that that's so critical.
Okay, so just a couple more things. One, do you have any empty classrooms?
We have 2 Butler buildings that are empty that we just got.
And I know that your population fluctuates
Yes,
somewhat,
ma'am.
but are you at capacity? for your programs?
In some classes we are, in some areas we are, and in some areas we are not.
Okay.
We do have one room in the main building on the second floor that is vacant. It was a home ec lab, and it's got the stoves in it, so that we do not utilize with the kids. However, we took the custodian storage rooms to use to work with small group students, so we've allowed the custodian to have that room in exchange for us taking their room.
That was nice. And I guess I didn't ask my question well. So when I asked if you were at capacity, you talked about 3 or 4 different programs that you have. So are you at capacity for each of those programs? For Connections, for instance? And
We're not at capacity for Connections, but at this point of the year for the Connections program, the only students that come in are Connections students that would come in from out of parish. The intake process for Connections, there was one in August and then another one in October. And then at that point, the kids are locked in, and we take in students who come in from out of parish. Now with AMI, they're at capacity. The virtual high school is at capacity. Level 2 is not at capacity. And this says 20. That was on Friday. I believe that they're going to be at 22 by the end of this week. So they're approaching, but not at capacity. And then a few of the grade levels within the behavior level 1 are at capacity and some are not.
all right, thank you.
So this,
Got 2
I'm
more-
sorry.
She's got 2 more slides.
I'm almost done, I promise. I'm almost done. This one just talks about our future, talking about planning to increase the amount of space in level 2 from 30 to 45. We find that it's effective and it's being successful. The second bullet will redistribute staff to create an additional elementary classroom as the referrals for this population seem to be growing each year. We're considering creating a combination class because that's the difficult part, is that we don't ever know what's coming to us. So if we could have a 2nd grade class, a 3rd grade class, and then a combination 2nd, 3rd grade class, so that if one or both were to overflow, the additional kids could move into this combination class. And the third bullet talks about our leveled literacy intervention program that we implemented this year. It's a really intense intervention program. One teacher runs that program, and then we have paras that work with her. She trains them how to deliver the lessons, and so we definitely want to continue this next year. This program, they've served over 90 students this year and have seen some growth in most students. We've seen multiple level growth in a few students, so we're seeing some success with this. And then the fourth bullet, Mr. Kinesic, this kind of goes to what you were saying about Edgenuity. Every time that we have to readjust our staff, the virtual learning always is an option. And so our high school fully works on Edgenuity on campus. And so what we're going to do is to accommodate the expansions that we want to do without having to ask for any more staff. We want to try this upcoming year to make our 8th grade classes run on campus, on virtual, so that we won't have to dedicate as much staff to 8th grade, and we can use that staff elsewhere to try to expand other areas. So I don't know how much further we could really go down than 8th grade, but I do know that we implemented it with 9th grade this year for the first time, and our recidivism rate in 9th grade is, if there is any, it's very, very few, because it's not enjoyable that you come here and your full day, you go to PE, you go to an elective, and then the rest of the time you're sitting in a room working on a computer. So while it's beneficial for them academically, socially, it's not at all what they would like. So we're finding that we're having good results with that. And then another thing is running Fast Forward. We're running it in 2 labs this year, which is consuming 3 labs. It's consuming 2 teachers and 3 paras. And so with us putting that responsibility onto the classroom teacher in the morning in every classroom next year, that would free up some additional staff also to help us with the expansions. And that's it. The last slide is just some additional information that you guys didn't ask for, but this is just kind of a little bit of positive information. Our attendance over the 13, 14, 14, 15, and this year it's just steadily increased each month, and so we're excited about that. That makes us think that maybe our climate is right and our culture is right, and it's making kids want to come to school a little bit more. So we thought that was a positive thing. Our arrests are way down. Of course, we're still just in February, but in February we're at 25 arrests. Where last year by May we were at 86, and the year before we were at 110. So I think, like I said, I feel like we're kind of starting to turn a corner. And then the last slide just talks to you about the mental health services. When we opened in 2012, we had 3 social workers, and since then we've lost one. We have now 2 social workers and 2 counselors. And this group of people carry a tremendous load at our school, because so many the mental health services and social services of our kids the needs are so high. So I definitely wanted to include that and say thank you. Okay. Yes, sir. Good.
If there are no more questions, then that was the last item on our agenda. I'll declare this meeting adjourned.